It's important to recognize that getting hurt is a natural part of life and that everybody goes through it. And we don't expect to get hurt, but when it happens, it leaves a major impact on victims, and one must not assume that moving on must always result from direct forgiveness of those who inflicted pain. But rather, it's important to view moving on as a means of allowing oneself to heal naturally. It's also important to acknowledge that this process may prove to be difficult, and one might be asking, how can I move on when it hurts so much? Even you who's watching me right now is probably like looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, how is this possible? How could I even suggest that I forgive and be able to move on? And nobody ever said anything about forgiving, and I'll get to that in a second. But you're right to feel these feelings. You're right to have this desire for justice and retribution. And while that is justified, those feelings can consume you. Those feelings can overwhelm you, and especially in cases when the oppressors never assume any responsibility for their actions. And I know people relate to that. I know people have felt I've felt like I've been gaslit into thinking that I am wrong, like my feelings are invalid, or I'm just making shit up in my head. And more often than not, people will try to convince me that they're doing no wrong, that they didn't hurt me, or they just choose not to assume any responsibility for their actions. And it's frustrating. I get that. It is really frustrating. This makes this process of healing exceptionally difficult. So you're asking me, Hagen, how can I forgive and move on? And now this brings me to my point that I never said anything about forgiving. And one must realize that these people and these problems are only temporary, and in most cases those who choose to hurt are simply reflecting the ugliness within themselves. People who talk shit about you, that it's only a reflection of what's on the inside, you'd be surprised on how much that actually holds true. True freedom grows by allowing one's heart to grow in the face of adversity and hardship. And this process does not have to be a lonely one. It's an important factor when it comes to surrounding oneself with loved ones and those who are willing to stand by as one navigates oneself. And referring back to that point where it's important to not let hatred and anger towards one person or groups of people consume you. It causes you to want to hurt others unintentionally. And you've heard me say that a million times. And one of the keys to seeking inner peace is to never assume that forgiveness is excusing what the others did. That behavior was wrong. A quote by Robert Enright, a professor of educational psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, says that forgiveness is excusing what the other did. That behavior was wrong. It was wrong, is wrong, and will always be wrong. And so, in order to heal, you must be willing to move on, in spite of being wronged, and without necessarily having to forgive, Moving forward without an apology involves a conscious choice to prioritize one's peace and well-being. It means acknowledging the hurt but not allowing it to define one's existence. It involves accepting that while the past cannot be changed, the grip it holds on one's emotional health can be loosened. And the process of moving on is an act of reclaiming your power by simply just moving on. As simple as it sounds, it can be really hard, but once you conquer that, you're in a way refusing to let others control or dictate how you live your life. You're not only just disregarding all the negative things that they're saying about you and not letting it define you, but you're also taking away their power over you. People are going to see that. People are going to try their hardest to get to you, but you have to not let them get to you. You have to show them that you can't be gaslit anymore, you can't be taken advantage of anymore, or that your kindness or your love or anything about you, just it can't be taken for granted anymore. And this is where, like, being alone, like exacerbates those feelings of negativity. Like, you don't have to do this alone. There are people, who will want to be with you during these times. Like, during these challenges, it's essential to recognize that the individuals who cause pain are reflecting their inner turmoil and ugliness. Freedom and personal growth, it also involves, like, the allowing of one's heart to expand rather than constrict in response to pain. And this doesn't necessitate a journey taken in isolation. And indeed, the support of loved ones and compassionate friends can be instrumental. These supporters provide strength and perspective, helping to anchor one in reality and affirming that one isn't defined by the hurts endured. People aren't always going to apologize to you. People are not always going to accept what they did was wrong and try to make amends. That's just not how it works. And I found that, sitting around waiting for an apology, only, like, it just isolates me. It's unrealistic. Not everybody is going to admit to their mistakes. That's true. But what you can do is you can take away their power, and you can turn it into power. You can turn it into something that empowers you. You can transform those feelings of negativity into feelings of love and respect for yourself, because those things aren't true. That they're in the wrong and that you're not. That you are more valuable, and you should know that you are more valuable than what anybody else would think about you. And that when you realize that you have love for yourself, and that people around you, like those who you choose to surround yourself with, the good ones in your life, once you realize that those are the people who are really out there for you, that your circle enlarges, your heart gets bigger. And even if you don't have anybody out there for you, be there for somebody who also doesn't have anybody out there with them, or be a part of somebody's life who's struggling, and include yourself in other circles. That way, you can create your own circle from those circles, and then the cycle of helping each other, it only continues to grow. So just remember that at the end of the day, you know you better than anybody, and you have to hold yourself to a higher level of respect, and you have to love yourself, and you have to be able to move on, even if it means getting hurt, even if it means that people aren't going to apologize. And once you do that, life truly starts feeling better, and you will start feeling more free. And I can't guarantee this process will happen overnight, or even, over the span of maybe even years. It takes time to condition yourself to just move on and not let things get to you. Because I know I'm human. We're all human. It's easy to let things get to us. It's easy to let things just eat away at our hearts. It's easy to just want to just close yourself off and to scream at the sky and just shout, why is this happening to me? I've done no wrong. I may have done no wrong, but in that moment you should realize that this pain should not be wished upon any others, and you definitely don't want to go through it again. So always remember that you are who you choose to be. You define yourself, nobody else. And once you realize that, I promise things start getting better.